Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 15. Another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week, so let's crack on. As ever, give the like, all that good stuff. First one is Lemonade. This is from the creators of TikTok, so this is ByteDance, and slightly suspicious there's stories around this in that, all of a sudden, it's been launched for 2 years, been sort of generally poodling along, but it's also, the last 2 weeks, has made it into the top 10 of the app charts, etc. So there's clearly some push going behind this. Obviously suspicious because TikTok is going through the US courts at the moment, should it be banned, etc. However, Lemonade is there. Again, the thing that's suspicious is everybody's talking in the same language about it. It's a mishmash of Instagram and Pinterest. So I did the right thing. I signed up. It clearly it isn't for me. It literally says, what are your interests? And it says fashion, makeup, food, skincare, hairstyle, home decor, pets, travel. There's nothing about engineering, technology, movies, anything like that. So there you go, creative industries. However, I signed up anyway. If you want to buy the look, there's me having done a little bit of bronze casting, for instance. I've had no likes on that, but there you go. So, if you're looking for the next big thing, it might well be Lemonade. There you go. This is really interesting, called frequency combs. So frequency combs look at essentially bouncing light off things and looking at the spectrum of light that is absorbed. Now, if you look at certain molecules, they will create a different spectrum, so they will absorb different chemical, or the chemicals will absorb different frequencies of light. So if you go through the whole spectrum, quite literally, you can actually try and identify, using different algorithms, what is actually in the air that's in there. So if you blow into a bag, for instance, you can start detecting molecules in your breath, because the breath is exhaling things that have been in contact with essentially the membranes of your lungs. So things like COVID, etc., or alcohol can be detected. So if you have come into contact with COVID, and it's about 80% accurate, I think, with COVID. So it's a very interesting, very early test you can make. So this might well be the future of going to your doctor or going into a hospital, where the first thing they might ask you to do is breathe into a bag. They will then do what's called comb breath analysis and then find out what's in your body. That could be really interesting. So cancer cells or molecules that are produced during certain say medical emergencies. There you go. Meta have released what they called SAM, which is a segment anything model. Now, you've seen these previously, but they were relatively, you had to train them, but you can go and play with it on their website. There's a link down below. And what you do is you upload an image, and it will automatically, with what they call a zero-shot generalization, you do not need to train it. It will try and find out what the things are. It has an idea of what objects are, and therefore it knows what to cut out. So, for instance, here's me. I think this is at the Science Museum, I think it is, Natural History Museum in London, and it knows what a person is. You can roll over the person, for instance, it will say this is an entire person. However, these are hands, this is a coat, this is probably a rucksack, that sort of thing. So this is a sign, these are doors. It will sort of segment everything because it knows what they are, even knows what the hands are. So really interesting for obviously, training it on images, but also if we're looking in the future about searching images, you can get far more detail. This has been around and about for a while, but this is the first time anything of this scale is kind of publicly available to have a play with as well. So definitely have a play with it. It is interesting. If you are into, as I say here, UX or UI with mobile, or just interested, or possibly looking at accessibility within mobile, this is interesting. So this is a study that is using, say, eye control to find out what's the best way of controlling a mobile phone. So with the advance of front-facing cameras, then this might be an interesting way that we start to use phones. So if you've ever tried to use phone with your gloves on, or for instance, or if you're struggling, or you're holding something, you're carrying something, and you need to make a call, then this might be the thing. So what they found out is there are different ways of interacting that are more efficient if you are walking or if you are stationary. So they were looking at 3 different methodologies. One is called dwell, which is where you essentially stare at something a long time and therefore it will select it. There's another one called pursuits, which is where you will identify it. There's a circle, you can see it in the what's called B there. So there'll be little sort of whizzing targets that you have to then follow with your eyes. And there's another one which is called gaze, or it's actually about gestures. So you can sort of move left or right and use that to navigate. So it's interesting. You might see this being a just a normal thing you see in the next couple of years, controlling your phone just with your eyes. More and more ChapGPT things, or at least we're starting to see the frayed edges of ChapGPT. This is Brian Hood, who used to work at essentially money printing in Australia, and there was some sort of wrongdoing. People were taking some sort of backhanders, etc. Probably, I don't know. Don't sue me for that, because this is about defamation. There was a whistleblower, which was Brian, and if you ask ChatGPT about Brian, who is now a counsellor in near Melbourne, they will actually say, or ChatGPT will actually say the wrong stuff. It'll actually say he was basically he was charged with multiple crimes, and I think in one case it was like, you know, they'd spent time in prison. He's like, no, I was the whistleblower on this thing. I went through the whole court process. I was actually a witness for the defence, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so he's basically saying, okay, there's somebody's taken up the case, let's try and sue ChatGPT for defamation, because it was clearly saying the wrong things, which were, you know, actually quite strong. So yeah, so he said 13 months in jail apparently he had, etc. So it's a really complicated thing to try and litigate against these, because like, who's responsible, who do you actually sue, who's it who actually made the call, etc. But if this happens, this could be a landmark case. Are AI companies responsible for their outputs, is really what's behind this. This is interesting stuff. I think this really came to light about 2 years ago, but there's lots of reports recently about this. Obviously, we're seeing far more uptake with the EU, or Germany is especially sort of marking the end of petrol or diesel cars, internal combustion cars, or ICE cars as they're called. More and more cars are electric, and the batteries of those cars are very heavy. And cars these days are 60% more heavy than they used to be anyway, plus then we have the batteries on top of that as well. So I think it was a Cortina Mark III, if I remember those, was the sort of the analogous car from the 60s and 70s. So now cars are quite easily, you know, a ton and a half, 2 tons, whereas they used to be less than a ton. And lots of people have done sort of structural investigations on existing 1960s, 1970s car parks, which is when a lot of them were built, and they probably can't stand if everybody parked an electric car in a car park, it would probably fall down. So there's some really interesting things about what is the price of this sort of innovation or progress when you don't really look at the infrastructure that now actually needs to support it, quite literally. So that's quite an interesting one as a really sort of a wide-ranging sort of thought for progress. And finally, we have MemeCam. Again, you can go and have a play with this, as I have done here. I just put a couple of my photos through there that I just have lying around on my my phone. So it's been trained on what a meme is. So we can look at the image, for instance, and then it can come up with some sort of quite arsey statement on it, which would be a meme. So these are just some random ones. You know, so obviously he clearly knows what's going on. That, you know, I had a cup of coffee with a smiley face in it, and it said something nice about it. I like the one. I mean, this was literally a muddy hole with a leaky pipe. Top one, and you know, the awkward moment when you become jealous of a hole because there's more depth than you, etc. So some of that did actually make me actually lol. But there you go. So so this uses what's called blip, which is image recognition, so it knows what's in the image, and also GPT 3.5. So not GPT-4. However, have a play of that. It's quite interesting. You upload any image to it and it will come up with a meme-like statement for it as well. So give it a go. Hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully it was useful, and hopefully I'll see you next week.